Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first episode of the Isle Lore podcast, where we discuss upcoming lore for the Isle Evrima and anything else possible. I'm here with Shadow today to discuss the Replicator, what it means, and what it is. So far, we only have one canon instance of the Replicator in Evrima, which is in the Augustus video, where it mentions that Augustus would be replicated, which presumably means use its genetics to create other Herrerasaurus with similar mutations. But from legacy lore, we do know that the Replicator is an artificial intelligence that is responsible for creating both the dinosaurs and Gen 1. Gen 1 worship the Replicator as a god and give it sacrifices, and the Replicator presumably gives benefits to Gen 1 for those sacrifices. We know that the Replicator watches through cameras, and we aren't sure how Apollo Engineering acquired the Replicator. Did I miss anything, Shadow?
I would say you covered about the basics of it. There's quite a lot to get more into, but that we can get into this episode.
Yep. So, what should we talk about first?
I'd say the idea of the replicator would definitely be a good start. Like what it is exactly, what it presents, what it does exactly in the Isle.
Right. So it's an artificial intelligence that sort of clones the dinosaurs, kind of not. It clones them with mutations. It's easier just to call it replication, which is what it's called in the Augustus video. So, the replicator, it makes the dinosaurs from previous templates that either it's created or AE's created. We don't know. And we don't know how AE acquired the replicator either, which is a bit frustrating.
That's a very interesting subject I like to find is we don't know exactly what this machine even is, if it's man-made, if it's something they found. We have no clue at all.
Right.
But it does seem to have some attributes of AE where it has its plan. It has AE's plans. It knows what it wants to do, but there's also the question of, is this replicator machine or whatever it is it sentient? Is it a creature that feels? Is it something that knows?
Right. I hope that that's a big plot point in the future where the replicator has its own goals and it's not what AE wants, despite AE being the one programming it. So I'm not sure how sentient it would be, but it is an interesting topic to think about.
Yeah, I like how I say she, but it's we should more refer it to as an it for the moment.
Right.
I like that it seems to have goals at the moment. It seems to not like AE from what we've seen. It doesn't want AE's presence on the island, but it still keeps on going on making dinosaurs and making all these other things that we just aren't 100% sure about.
Right. There's two things that I want to bring up before my brain just skedaddles. The first one, the Augustus, he was attacking the cameras. We don't know why he did that. It could be replicator related, it could be neural related, we just really don't know. And
yeah, I like to think the idea that possibly this is one of the first signs of the replicator taking some kind of dominance over the dinosaurs, and AE isn't fully in control anymore. But this is just a theory.
Right, it's like the start, like it starts snowballing there.
Exactly.
Right. And the other thing, we don't know if the replicator is just the AI or if the replicator actually encompasses the tool that creates the dinosaurs.
Yeah, like I've said, we aren't even sure if it's a machine or if it's a program. We're not 100% sure what it is, but we do know its name at least.
Yeah, we know its name. We know that the Gen 1 worships it, and if you guys don't know what Gen 1 is because you're fairly recently new here, they're basically lizard people that I presume to be the first experiment that was a learning experience, if not complete failure, to recreate humans the same way that they recreated dinosaurs.
We have also old concepts of what Gen 1 used to be, which used to be cannibals, and we have the modern day ones. And the modern day ones seem to have more human attributes than the dinosaur types that they had in the old concepts.
Right. The new guys are definitely more humanoid, but they're face is it's hard to describe. I might see
It's
if I can find
it's predatory. It's definitely predatory.
predatory is a very good descriptor for it. But the replicator, it's worshipped by the Gen 1s. I'm interested in knowing how the Gen 1s figured out that it watched through the cameras.
It's some questions like I've said that we wish we had answers to, but there's a lot to uncover. I do like the idea that the replicator has somewhat influence on Gen 1, like you said, that they worship her like a goddess. Like, they see something in her that AE just doesn't, for sure.
Right. Another thing that is a little bit infuriating is when I asked Dondi about the one image that we have of the painting with the camera, his response was, it's canon until it isn't. And that is a little bit frustrating. Because
it's something that seems to refer to the Isle back and forth. Everything is canon until it isn't with the Isle.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we like to think will be canon, but then later on, Dondi or another dev will tell us the opposite.
Then there's the fact that it was remade from Legacy, which is where we're getting most of our information for the Replicator from, which is probably why it's canon until it isn't, because Replicator's still being developed, but most of our ideas are from Legacy.
We have very little lore on Evrima, and even the lore that is confirmed is very, very shallow. It's not too deep, but Legacy lore kind of gives us an idea of more of what AE was, what the Replicator was, but it only kind of gives us a backbone of it. It doesn't fully show us the body.
Right. One of my favorite things to describe it as, we know a lot about the what and a little bit about the how and almost nothing about the why.
That is the question for every single one of us, is the why.
Right. So we talked about Gen 1 and the Replicator. Let's talk about dinosaurs and the Replicator for a minute.
Of course, yeah, no, definitely.
So,
I like the idea of like you said, it basically what happens with the Replicator is it uses a base code that AE gives them and recreates that specific creature off of the specific base genes that it needed, and completely recreates the dinosaur.
Right. Well, we also know that the dinosaurs aren't like actually clones of dinosaurs. They're not genetic.
Exactly. That's what I mean. They're like a printed image basically,
Yeah,
but they're not the actual thing.
I like to use the comparison of AE did the whole meme where it's, all right, you can copy my homework, just make sure it looks different, because that's basically what the dinosaurs are.
That is basically what it is, yeah. It's they look like dinosaurs, they sound like dinosaurs, and hell, they might even be really close to dinosaurs, but at the end of the day, they're just lab creatures, you know?
Right. But dinosaurs, despite it mainly currently being a dinosaur game, are like not super relevant to the lore so far. I'm sure they'll become a lot more relevant later on as we learn about the fall of the island, as well as
we definitely know there is something very important, as in why dinosaurs. Why has AE started this, and it had to start with dinosaurs. They were necessary, from what Dondia said.
Right. The AE started as an agriculture/food company, but now it's using the Replicator to make dinosaurs. At what point did the Replicator get introduced, and how did they use it, and all that stuff? We don't really know yet, but hopefully we will.
Especially since even with the new map gateway on, we can't even pinpoint exactly a time and everything of when things started to happen. So right now we're kind of up in the clouds, but
yeah,
it's something we hope to find out soon.
Our rough estimates are like anywhere from 10 to 100 years. I personally think it's like 20 to 25-ish.
Yeah, I think it would be, if I recall correctly, it was 1999 was when the island was abandoned by AE. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's our best guess because of the, what's it called? Roadmap video.
The last video that was the last date that was shown off a file.
Yeah, off the computers. The last time the operating system was updated was 1999.
But yeah, I would assume the same as you, something like 20, 30 years. I would assume also Dondi might be wanting to do something where the modern time, the current time, is the same as in the games. But what happened like 20, 30 years ago in 1999 is what the big story really is.
Right. Like it's fixing previous mistakes.
Exactly.
Right. Another thing with the replicator that we haven't touched on yet, the neurotenic mastermind, or the echidna.
Yeah, so very interesting subject and something not a lot of people know about. Even though they've been playing the Isle for a long time, they will learn about this just for in the last few years.
Right. So the neurotenic mastermind is the humanoid neurostrain type N, and in Legacy, it was depicted as the mother of cannibals, which leads us to think that the echidna is either a spiritual leader or just a leader of Gen 1. And there's been a couple of theories revolving around this, anywhere from not Gen 1, the echidna leading the worship of the replicator, to there being multiple factions of Gen 1 within the actual species. It's just a whole thing, and I find it really interesting to think about.
It's interesting to see everybody's theories come together and just make this giant smoke of full of theories, and everybody gets in it, and it's really interesting. And what's really cooler is whenever something gets confirmed or so say, which hasn't really happened too often, but when it does happen, it's quite
Right.
a very satisfying feeling.
Yeah. Like the tomb. We like somebody asked about a library, and then Darnay's like, "Oh yeah, it's called the tomb." And then he compared it to the Library of Alexandria, which makes me think that something happened to it, or it got damaged or something, maybe during the fall.
Lost or something like that, I presume, is what the
Right.
story was. It was lost, yeah.
Maybe. But the tomb. I'm thinking that the replicator gets a lot of information from the tomb itself.
It would make sense, since from what we know and what we theorize is the gut system, which is under Gateway at the moment, most likely connects all of these very important points, like the Olympus transmitter, Tartarus, a lot of things that we hope are all together but could be on another map.
Right. And then, speaking of another map, we know that Gen 2, the actual humans that'll be playable in the game, although technically not humans, it's the same as the dinosaur
Yes, it's the
situation.
same story as we were saying with dinosaurs. Basically, they're like humans, but not really.
Right. But we don't know, like, Gen 2 were made on, well, off the island, presumably on other islands owned by AE, which made me bring up the possibility of either the replicator, there being multiple replicators, or the replicator doing its job on Gateway as well as the other islands, which we really don't know.
Basically, what you're saying is her programming isn't just on the Gateway Island; it's on multiple islands that AE has owned
I'm
and has systems on.
I'm saying it's a possibility because of Gen 2 being created off the island, although Gen 2 could just be AE made rather than Replicator made on a different
Yeah,
island.
that's another thing that's very interesting about the replicators. We don't know if they used the replicator to create Gen 2 as well, as Gen 2 seems to have been something a little bit more, how do I say this? They were a little bit more wary about it than they were with the first time with Gen 1.
Right. My favorite theory so far, was it you that proposed this, where it's the Replicator thinks that Gen 1 is the perfect human, which is what AE
Is it the
programmed it
one
to?
where basically, yeah, Gen 1 is the perfect human in a dinosaur world, a world full of dangerous creatures where it has to survive? That's the perfect idea of a human for the replicator. While we think AE, basically the regular human mind, we want the perfect soldier, we want the perfect worker, you know? That's what Gen 2 would be.
Right. That's my favorite theory so far for Gen 1 and Gen 2 creation from, well, not even from the replicator in case of Gen 2, because I don't think the replicator would make Gen 2 in that
Yeah,
instance.
I would assume, this is my theory, but I think they're more lab made. So somewhere away from the replicator's influence. I feel like when Gen 2 was made, the replicator's influence was already known and they knew something was going on.
I would agree. Because,
Because there's no way they would have kept working on the same project unless they knew they couldn't go back on the islands and they needed to send somebody.
right. And in Legacy, the replicator was primarily located within Tartarus. So, like, once we get inside of Guts and the Tartarus and we start digging through all the lore, it's going to be really cool. Like, the game has so much lore, and, like, every fifth person you're going to come across is going to be like, wait, this game has lore? and then like half of the people are
It's
upset.
really it's quite satisfying showing people how much backstory this game is. Even though it's very obscure, it's very satisfying.
Oh yeah, like it's a well written story too, and I like that AE isn't intended to just be like an evil company, but like
Not at all. They
they're
do evil things for the benefits of the good.
right. It's like a anti-hero company. It's like Amazon, except they actually want what's best for humanity.
I think Dondi said it best. It was something about some actions need to be required for the movement of future purposes or something like
Right.
that. You know, it's like some things just have to be done.
Well, something else that Dondi said when he mentioned when we asked like why dinosaurs, he said it's unfortunate but necessary. So
Very, very interesting. I really, this is one of the biggest question, probably the biggest question we all have. It's why dinosaurs?
yeah, that's
What's so specific about them?
currently the largest question. Yeah, like why specifically go for the 9-ton reptile bird thing that can eat a man in 2 bites when you
Instead
could
of like
just
the modern day shark or the modern day gator, which are top tier predators of our day. You know.
right. Well, then there's just that Apollo Engineering and Legacy was a biopharmaceutical company as well. So we really just like it's up in the air why they want dinosaurs, and we know that the strains are loosely related to like medicine as well. So
Yeah, only because Dondi gave us a little hint. If Dondi didn't give us that little hint, we'd still be struggling on what hypers are and what probably other strains are made for.
yeah, it's just a whole the Isle lore. It's I like to think of it as we have it's a plant, right? We have roots, and then from the roots up,
Oh
it's
yeah,
just weeds. So far,
it's like what Isaac does all the time. Isaac is somebody who we have in our channel. We like to talk the lore about. He probably knows the most out of us. But oh, hold up. Yeah, no, it's give me a second there. I
you're fine.
just completely blacked out.
While you're thinking, speaking of Isaac, you should go check out his channel, Lightclaw. He also does lore
Definitely.
stuff, and it's really well made, and it's probably going to be more palatable than listening to us explain this.
Yeah, no, we're just like kind of theorizing. We truly don't know as much as we would hope, which is kind of the case with everybody in the Isle Discord. But we truly are trying to figure out. We have found some little things, like you said, the strains. That was somebody's complete guess off of what it was, and it ended up just being a shot in the dark, and it hit the target.
Right. Uh, Then there's like the whole thing with strains in the replicator. Did replicator make strains? Does it replicate the strains after they're implemented? Are like
It,
things
it's
related to this?
truly interesting.
Then there's things
It,
related
it
to the strains like the matriarch. Like, did the replicator make that as well? It's just a toss up.
Do you really want to get into the matriarch in this episode? I think that's getting a
That
little
is its.
deep.
Oh, I'm just touching it. I'm gonna leave it for now. It's my favorite thing in the Isle lore.
Exactly. I thought you would want to do an episode on that alone.
I'm gonna do an episode on that alone. It'll be in the future, but I'm just touching on it. But like
Yeah.
it's just a whole thing. Like exactly where does the replicator's jurisdiction start and stop is just the biggest question.
Exactly. Like we don't know. From the best we know is from the Augustus video, like Rumple, like Rump said. We only know how she influences from that single video, and that's just a UI. It's nothing even crazy. It's nothing physical. And maybe the best theory we have of seeing the replicator's influence is in Augustus itself attacking the cameras.
Right. So far for Evrima, that's all that we have, but we can make some pretty solid guesses based off of old legacy lore.
Definitely.
But it's just there's so much things, and then there's the I'm not going to get into this either, but relocation to Tartarus and lineage displacement, all that. That's we'll
Oh
touch
yeah.
on that in a different episode as well. But there's just so
I
much stuff.
definitely feel like that's something we would need Isaac and maybe somebody else, but that's definitely a very touchy subject that we
Right.
want to get into.
For reference, if those people who are watching are fairly new to the lore, because we are using quite a bit of jargon. The GUTS system, it's an acronym that stands for General Underground Transportation System, and it represents like the guts of the island. It's just a bunch of tunnels that's used for moving stuff around underneath Gateway. And Tartarus is in Legacy, Tartarus was a massive containment / creation facility for the strains. But it seems that in Evrima, it may also be...
I just want to intrude you just for a second. I remember the thing about the Tartarus that we kind of just got recent confirmation about is that our idea of it is nowhere near what it truly is.
Right.
So that's up in the air for the moment.
I just mentioned something while Donnie was streaming, like, oh, Tartarus entrance, please, just like super offhand, and he just chuckled and said we don't know anything and continued on, which was a little bit spooky, but it also makes me excited to see what's coming.
It makes us think like, oh, so what is it truly?
Right. Because so far, I think we have the tunnel that's currently in Gateway, and then we have a monorail tunnels that are going to be coming, and then there's all sorts of other things in Guts. But the whole Guts system, I think, is going to be a really good place to look for lore, as well as the docks whenever they come out.
And like we said, most entrances to these places, to the Guts entrances, will be bringing you to really, really special locations. Like he said, Tartarus and all of that. And that is where our real story will be found.
Yeah, probably. In the Errant 291 thing. One second, let me pull it up so I make sure I'm not saying anything wrong. Apollo Engineering.
I'm pretty sure it's Errant 291, but make sure.
AE info, that's where I have it saved under. Complete report, yes. No, not that one. Alright, so...
Spooky escapee.
It specifically does say Guts access route, so you're probably right in that it's all connected via the Guts system, but there's the Zeus entry, Hades entry, Poseidon entry. The Isle, as Lightclaw said in his breakdown video, is a lot of allusions to Hellenistic or ancient Greek mythology, which is really interesting as well,
yeah,
which is where some of you might...
I don't think we've actually said that yet, but there is a lot of Greek mythology influence going on with Apollo and all of its branches and all that. There's there's just a massive influence in the Greek mythology.
It's, first off, the company's called Apollo Engineering, then there's Tartarus, which is the home of, well, not the home, the prison of the Titans, which is another good allusion. Then there's Olympus Central Control.
We have, yeah, exactly. It's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of little hints about the Greek mythology, and they seem to be very preoccupied with having that whole idea around their company.
Right. We did get a little bit off track, but just like making sure you guys know stuff is important, let's get back towards the Replicator a bit.
Definitely.
So we also don't know how the dinosaurs are released onto the island. We do know that they were freely roaming before the island fell because of the Augustus video. So they weren't all just contained and then freely roamed after the fall. That
is why every human base has fences and stuff like that. Like, they were going out on the islands on their own danger to get to different places.
Right. But that just makes us think as well, like, what does AE really want from the dinosaurs? Because if they just wanted to, like, harvest stuff from them, it'd be easier to keep them tightly contained. But if they want, like...
Exactly. There should be no reason to be having them all over on a... Right now, Gateway is 14 kilometers by 14 kilometers map, all doing whatever they want to do, going in different spots.
Right. So, it's just a whole thing. We do know... something else that I wonder. The Replicator, does it put the tracking chips into the dinosaurs itself? Because the dinosaurs created after the fall still have tracking chips.
We definitely want to know why exactly the dinosaurs are let loose on the island, and why even the Replicator keeps doing this. She doesn't seem... I say she again, but I should be saying it. It seems to keep on letting the dinosaurs go loose. It makes me think, does she also have somewhat influence on the dinosaurs? Will they start following at some point if she just turns on the switch? It's a lot of what ifs.
Something that I really like to think about, the Replicator is not completely sentient, it's like semi-sentient. It has like a mother complex over its creations, but AE is the one that told it to create stuff. So it's like doing its job, but it just gets attached to its creations. That's how I like to think of it, just because I don't want the replicator to just be a villain for Gen 2.
And definitely, and no matter what, if it's sentient or not sentient, the machine is thinking it's doing the right thing. It's a machine at the end of the day. It's an AI. It's a programming. What it computes to what it thinks is right.
Right. I like to think that it was doing what it's told, and Apollo Engineering didn't know what it was asking it to do or how it would respond. That's just me, though. That's my take. I want the fall to be AE bit off more than they could chew.
Oh yeah, no, that's something we really want to know is what did the replicator exactly do to get AE to leave the islands, like completely leave sets that are millions and probably billions of dollars.
Right. The domes alone. 1 second. I'm just gonna do a quick Google for some, like the only thing that I could probably compare the domes to, which is the football stadium in Dallas, because
Okay, yeah,
Dallas, because that's like probably one of the smaller domes, I'd say, if not like the smaller domes being bigger than that. Cost $1.3 billion. So each of the domes probably costs a little bit more than $1.3 billion for the small ones. Like that
and that's excluding perimeter, a huge hexadome.
Right. It's just like a massive investment to leave behind, which like it'd have to. I'm thinking they got forced out. That's the only thing I can think of, unless they had like a plan where them getting forced out was part of the plan, or they left on purpose because like stuff's broken on Gateway. Like there's broken hyper fences. I want to know what caused that. There's so much
Exactly.
Much stuff.
We want to know what exactly happened. What was the first signs of something's going wrong? We want to know what the replicator did. What did she free? Because, like you just said, there are broken fences here and there, and broken parts of buildings, and there's definitely something that's been around the island doing some damage.
Right, and something else that we noticed about the replicator. I said that it watches through the cameras on the perimeter, like the perimeter. As of recording this video, the perimeter hexadome, the entrance partially opened, and we got into that warehouse, garage, office area thing, and like there's 2 cameras in there. Like, does the replicator still watch through the cameras? And if so, should I be careful about, like, it's just a whole question. There's so much stuff to do with the replicator that we don't know.
I would definitely assume that it's something like I think you said, and I really like, we possibly a mission or a task, I should say, to be doing as Gen 2 is taking control of cameras again. You know, if you see some cameras in a base, you know that's one of the first things you have to do is take down those cameras and try to either fix them up or leave them down so the replicator can't do anything.
Right, because the replicator could. We don't know how it works, so this is all just like highly skeptical speculation. But it could like
it would be like some Watch Dogs hacking type of thing, is what we're thinking. Right. It looks at something and basically it gets into the system.
Something else that I'm mentioning, like we don't know the extent that the replicator is capable of communicating with Gen 1. It could be through the echidna, where it just talks to the echidna and then the echidna relays a message. It could directly talk to Gen 1. It could not talk at all. Like, it really just depends, because we know that Gen 1 is intelligent enough. That's like
that's saying maybe like chimpanzee smart, you know? Like, they can use tools, they can do a lot of things that humans can, but I think Dondi said they don't really talk. They do more sounds than talk.
They're not human smart, but they definitely are intelligent.
Yeah, they're like primate level intelligence, basically.
Sorry.
We also do know that they might not speak to each other, but Gen 1 somewhat, and this is confirmed by Dondi, they have a feeling, a subconscious feeling that they know what created them. And this is why they worship the replicator.
Dondi said they worship the replicator because they know where they came from.
Which is really mysterious but cool to think about.
Something else that I want to mention as we're starting to get towards the end of this the Replicator, as I said earlier, Gen 1 sacrifices things to it. Gen 1 gets benefit in Legacy. Gen 1, not Gen 1, it would have been Tribals back then. Whatever. Gen 1 would get benefits from sacrificing things to the Replicator and get an upgrade to the Eyeless, which Dondi described the Eyeless in Evrima as Gen 1.5. So I'm imagining the Replicator is how they'd go about doing that. That could be the mutation system for Gen 1 or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But, like, the Replicator is not without its protectors. I'm sorry. The Replicator, it benefits those who worship it. Like, it's a transactional experience as well as a spiritual one.
And this is not Gen 1 exclusive either. Gen 2 will be able to also get some rewards from the Replicator, at least from what we've heard.
We're not entirely sure about that. That's kind of speculation. We do know that Gen 1 will be able to capture stuff, like be able to capture temporarily
You're right.
restrain Gen 2 in order to bring them for a sacrifice, which makes me think that the Replicator may prefer live sacrifices. We don't know why, like, they need to be captured alive, which is the thing. But it's just
it could be like DNA, like processing. It could be anything from. There's a lot of theories on why exactly she would want these living things to, and then reward somebody else. We kind of see it as like an army kind of thing. Like the Gen 1s are the regular soldiers, the foot soldiers, and the Eyeless would be more of like a lieutenant or something. But there's still a lot more that we don't know about the rewards that we're going to get.
Right. Then there's, like, the Replicator watches through the cameras. Already mentioned that, but we also already mentioned how it creates the dinosaurs. I'm pretty sure it's the thing from Portals 2.
You would have to familiarize myself with that.
Sorry. Portals 2 artificial intelligence thing.
Okay.
I'm going to stream my screen real quick to show you. This is, like, the creation room. I want it to be something like this. Where...
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah. That would be quite interesting.
But
like you said, it could be something like she's everywhere at the same time.
Right, but I want this, like, the creation room, she needs to be something to observe. Something like then arms to create stuff. I'm not sure. Like, I like the idea of biological 3D printer.
I do like that. I had like something of a very very similar idea. It was I don't know if you've ever played Fallout, like the very first Fallout, but the ending had a boss which was basically a computer that was mixed with like a bunch of humans and like mutants and stuff like that, and it was using like all the DNA as like a processing unit. The more DNA it got, the more it could process, and the better it could learn and the smarter it got. I like to think the Replicator would do something like that, and that's why she wants so many living things.
Right. Personally, I think that I like to see the Replicator as like a mother, so I feel like it'd just be fine where it is, just watching its creations grow, but it could very well have higher plans if it is truly sentient. It really just a ton depends on what.
Yeah, like you said, it's all theorizing. It's really all theorizing.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff in the Isle lore. Like, this is one subject, and it's all so interconnected as well, which makes me think it's like really good story writing.
The best way to describe like one lore subject is that meme of Charlie Day just like on the board, just like showing all the points going all over on the board. That's the best way. We start off one subject and we go in 1,000 different paths.
Right, like we started on the Replicator, but we've covered Guts, Tartarus, Gen 1, Neurotenic Mastermind, Gen 2. There's so much interconnected stuff that it's hard to just talk about one thing. And as we learn more, I feel like it's going to be filling in pieces of a puzzle where we're like, oh, it connects to that and that and that. How did we not notice this?
That's what's going to be really cool. Like I said earlier, is seeing our theories kind of coming together. Even if we're not 100% right, even if we're like halfway right on a theory, that's still good for us.
Right. It's always a win. Every time we get lore for this game, it's a win.
Yeah, like the Augustus video was just a gem in a long, long time for lore people.
Right. Two things, two last things that I want to cover relating to the replicator before we close off this first episode. EIPs, gross, but
Oh,
the
disgust.
human consciousness inside the dinosaurs, it's not confirmed gone yet. I'd like it to be. That's just my personal opinion. It could still happen. Then Biotrace, which we've seen mentioned
Oh,
once in the
yeah.
Canon
This
291.
is just something we truly don't know what it is, but we want to learn about it like crazy.
I personally think that the Biotrace is that genetic code that's stored inside the tomb and then given to the replicator, presumably, once again. Anything past like 5 minutes in this video is largely theory.
Definitely. Like, yeah, like we covered so much, but yeah, no, we keep on going though.
But yeah, Biotrace. I think it's mentioned in only in the
Aaron thing, yeah.
the Errant 291 incident report. I'm pulling that up now.
Yeah, it's
Fun
a
review.
really interesting situation because we don't know. It's probably one of the most interesting things in the Isle at the moment, just because of how mysterious it is. We really know almost nothing about it, but we go crazy off of it.
Right. 291 was found to possess no active biotrace, but stating their name to be blank because it had to be censored. Ugh. But biotrace, like, that makes me think biotrace is either something that can be held or something that is innate in everything. So it could have been stealing biotraces, or it's an innate feature, or there's just so much stuff.
It's either something they want or something they're trying to avoid. That's my idea of it, at least. Like, it's something very important in AE's eyes. Either it's really dangerous or it's something that, like, that's very important to them. It basically tells them, oh, this is something we have, this is something we know, like you said.
Right. Biotrace could also just be like a barcode for living things where it tells you everything about them, just like genetic code once again. There's just so much that we don't know and so much to learn. But
Yeah, it would make sense. So biotrace, biology, and it's basically tracking that exact creature. So it would make sense, you know?
right, there's just so much to learn, and I look forward to like learning it along with all these cool guys who are interested
They
in
get them.
lore. Just so much. But I think we're gonna call that an episode for today. Thank you for showing up.
No
I
problem at all, man.
Yep, I would like to highly recommend anybody who ends up listening or watching to this to go check out Lightclaw's channel. He's going to be putting a lot more effort into educating you guys on lore. I decided to do a podcast because I can't do videos, so I really appreciate it. Have a great day, guys, and keep trying to learn stuff.